Okay, we're going to talk about security, governance, and compliance. I try to break up the slides, if you notice, with different background. I think maybe just keeping the same concept gets boring. So again, feedback is always great from there. So we're going to get into compliance. So a couple of things we're going to cover. I'm going to give you an overview. Again, given that this is more exam focused, I don't go into the weeds. So, introduction to security, governance, and compliance. Security frameworks, we're going to cover that. Policies and procedures, what is the role as a leadership? You as a lead, you as a leader. Regulatory compliance, security audits and assessment, and continuous improvement. What does that look like? All right, so the introduction of governance and compliance. All organizations normally have to follow some regulatory compliance related to, again, the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of the data aspects that they are responsible for. There are legal laws that come out, there's industry standards. So really, that's what this is about generally. It's really a framework of such that provides governance over that piece of information as it relates to those critical data components. So you have policies that's going to really dictate what needs to get done from a policy perspective. And then you have procedures of how you're going to do it. There are security frameworks that really guide organizations around that process. These frameworks there are different frameworks out there. The most common one that you will see organizations use is NIST Cybersecurity Framework. This framework was put together in collaboration with the folks at Carnegie Mellon as a way for government government organizations and as well as employees and organizations of how do you manage security, what controls you need to have in place. So I have here, it's this established framework such as the ISO or the /IEC 27001, NIST, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, COBIT. Again, these frameworks are just guidelines for implementing and maintaining a continuous improvement as it relates to the organizational information security management system standards. They help an organization identify security risks and implement the proper controls, kind of the textbook definition. All frameworks map to each other. Whether you use NIST maps to ISO can map to COBIT. It's just a way for you as defined to help understand what are those controls I need to have in place, and then how do I implement them as it relates to cybersecurity risks. Now, it's a guideline. It's not an end-all be-all. It's just a guideline. Your organization may do things different, but again, it's a starting point. Now, you have to at least have policies and procedures. This is covering cyber, but in any organization, you got to have a policy. Even if you're some level of a startup, you got to have some policy of what is a organization required to do. Now, we'll kind of go back to the definition. The security policies and procedures are the foundational of a robust, or the foundation of a robust security governance program. That is true. These policies are going to really set the tone for the organization's security objectives, and it's going to define an acceptable use, access control, incident response. So there's a couple of things, but again, it's based on normally in NIST or some framework that covers all of these items. These procedures will provide a detailed step-by-step instructions to ensure consistent implementation of these security policies across the organization. Again, that's kind of the textbook definition and approach. But again, when you get into this, there's a little tweaks, a little pivot you may need to do to ensure that your business can still operate effectively and efficiently. but you got to stick to the intent of your policies as well as the NIST framework. Because if you're ever audited, depending on what type of organization you are in, they will look to see if you say you're a NIST shop, they will say, okay, show me your policies that align with NIST. Show me your policies that align with ISO, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to have to be able to demonstrate the effectiveness of those procedures, those controls, and resiliency that you put in. But for the exam, again, let's just focus on these definitions. So what is your role? Really leadership plays a critical role in security governance. And I say that because we all should be aspiring to be leaders. The senior management, again, we must demonstrate a commitment to security by really allocating the right resources. We want to establish a culture of cybersecurity soldiers, and we want to ensure accountabilities. So the leaders are responsible for setting the tone from the top down. I could tell you if I don't have a top-down support on security, it's a very uphill battle. So really, you need an organization that's going to support what you're trying to do as a security professional. If you walk in and you get there and you find that they're not taking security seriously, and you did everything you can to really move that needle, kind of sound that bell, and it becomes an afterthought, I sometimes say it's probably not the right company for you to be in. Because without the top-down support of security, you're more noise than anything else. You could kind of, ring the bell, there's a fire, but if the top folks are not getting it and they're not in pushing that down, that means the individuals that you're talking to are not going to take it serious until something happens. Then the question will be, you didn't do enough to really elevate, the seriousness of it. So it's a topic. It's just something a professor told me when I was taking one of my certifications, based on his experience. So regulatory compliance, I think I've covered that in many different facets, even the videos. GDPR, HIPAA, PCI compliance, these really are regulations that has been put in place, and it's going to really help an organization avoid legal penalties and build trust with their companies, as customers and stakeholders. This will be done by regular audits and assessments, which again will ensure ongoing compliance from that perspective. Security audit assessments. If you're in cybersecurity, you will be audited. They will look at your security audits, which are really, I believe, critical to really evaluate what we call the effectiveness of the security measures in place. That would happen either internally or externally, or again, bringing in an independent reviewer is always great, because sometimes you're so close to it that you may not really see those areas of risk. And again, it's always about continuous improvement, and some of your regulatory requirements is going to require you to actually get that done. It's important to stay compliant. Again, as I mentioned before, you have regulatory fees, fines, and in some cases even criminal penalties, depending on how far it goes. And again, the threat landscape changes. It's not one and done. So you always, as the threat actors are coming up with more things, we have to also put in more controls, more resilience, look at our tools. You never rest on your laurels of what you've done from the previous year. You just can't. It's a continuous evolution, because as the threat landscape changes, the new hot thing is AI, and AI is just creating a whole bunch of potential issues all over the place. So now you kind of have to get into the AI world and say, okay, how are they using AI for phishing? How are they using AI for other things? Can AI tap into other things about personnel that's going to create a message that's going to allow an individual to believe it's accurate and click on it? It's quite interesting when you start getting into it. Continuous improvement, like I said before, it's really the principle of governance. You must make sure that you're regularly reviewing and updating security policies and procedures to really, again, address new risk challenges, and it's implementing a cycle of planning. You want to execute, review, and refine the security measures. Again, being very proactive. Sometimes I feel I'm always living in reactive state, but again, the goal is to be very proactive to security management and items from there. Right? Just kind of chapter follow-ups. What are the security policies and procedures and why they're important? Again, this will probably be an exam question. Security policy and procedures are essentially guidelines, and that's what I said. That's going to really talk about best practice for protecting sensitive data, ensuring, again, the security of digital assets. I mean, they are important because it helps the organization really minimize the risk of data breaches, cyber attacks, and other security threats. Name three compliance regulations or standards that the IT professional should be familiar with. Again, I just named a couple of them here. Payment card, standard PCI, healthcare, which is HIPAA, healthcare insurance portability, and accounting act, HIPAA, and GDPR. You could add in CCPA. There's a lot of other ones that are out there, but those are some of the common ones. What is the purpose of security auditing and monitoring? Again, really that purpose of security auditing and monitoring is to systematically evaluate, continuously surveying and looking at your system, your network. You really want to ensure the security of the sensitive data, that information, and this is going to help identify potential vulnerabilities and risks, allowing the organization to be more proactive and address and mitigate security threats. How can IT professionals stay informed about the latest security threat? I'll kind of read this through. IT professionals can stay informed about the latest security by subscribing to industry publication, conferences, newsletters. Again, I'll just kind of, my thought on this is really everything written here is correct. I do conferences quite a bit. I do free webinars quite a bit. I do follow the threat intel forum at Carnegie Mellon. Again, I do or have done courses there, so there's some level of affiliation from that perspective, and just continuously training. Actually, if you go to CISA, SISA, there are things that you could sign up for there that will give you intel from that perspective. So just continuously keep yourself educated in what's going on out there. Glossary of terms, again, more from an exam perspective: access control, data encryption, security audits, PCI, HIPAA, GDPR. Again, please study these definitions. They may or may not be on the class, sometimes on the test as a question. Okay, as usual, if there's any questions or anything you may have, please reach out.